Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this committee meeting of the MDC Government Special Meeting to order. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to make some comments relative to agenda items? Okay. Moving along to item number 3, the Independent Consumer Advocate comment and questions relative to agenda items. Okay. Not here?
Yeah, not here.
Item number 4 is the approval of the meeting minutes of February 11th, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5 is a referral of the proposed ordinances, revisions, and additions to get referred to public hearing. Before we pass this motion, are there any questions on the proposed ordinances? Let me just call Scott here. They have a question.
I'm sorry.
They have a question. Yes.
Yeah, as I was telling Clerk Myrtle, I spent a lot of time with this weekend, and I'd like an overview of what we're trying to do here, what the the goal of 5 pages of new red line and removing things is with regard to these ordinances. And once I make sure that I understand what I thought I read, then I'll have follow-up questions, please.
Do you want me to go?
You want me to start? Or it's up to you.
I'll start.
Okay.
This is John Myrtle. I'll walk through the ordinances and spend some more time on others than some of them. For the batch of water ordinances, W1C and W1F, the purpose of these changes relate to charges on fire services, specifically in non-member towns. So for a property that has commercial industrial use or that has fire service, they have a domestic service usually and then a separate fire service. In the non-member towns, W1C is the surcharge outside the metropolitan district, and the listing of the rates right there, it mirrors the customer service charge. So a customer in a non-member town receives for a 5/8 meter, the $14.98 a customer service charge per month, and then also this surcharge outside the metropolitan district. For a property that also has a fire service, they receive these charges on the domestic service and the fire service. So we had, in the last couple of years, started adding meters to fire services, and with that came charges. We received some feedback from some customers in the non-member towns that have fire services, and they were questioning the fairness of having these charges multiple times on their account every month. So what 1C and 1F is addressing is removing these charges. W1C, again, is the non-member town surcharge, and then W1F is a surcharge outside the metropolitan district for capital improvement projects. And you'll see there's a table that has those rates. So those 2 water ordinance changes, it's removing these surcharges from fire services. W5B is related to our availability and capacity process. That's currently, if somebody wants to connect to our system, whether it's water or sewer, they contact engineering and we go through an analysis and decide determine whether we have sufficient water to provide them service and sufficient sewer capacity to provide them service. We wanted to have an ordinance. That process has never been referenced in any ordinance anywhere, so we've done this on both the water and sewer side. This is basically outlining their Water Bureau has already approved the guidelines, the ANC guidelines, and this ordinance is basically starts to lay out what that process is, and then there's available guidelines that people can pull and look at so they'll understand what the process is.
And John, if I may.
Yes.
We're just defining the process. The process hasn't changed. It's just a matter of referencing it in our ordinances.
And then on the next page, so 5B1, this is the beginning of the sewer ordinances. You'll see S2F, we have a change to the title of the ordinance. The first paragraph is struck, but that paragraph is not going away. It's being moved to a different ordinance. And so we're renaming this ordinance for determination for availability and capacity. This went to BPW, I believe at 2 different meetings. We'd had meetings with City of Hartford over this language. And the intent here, again, this is spelling out the availability and capacity process. And in here, stormwater is kind of the underlying current, and that's a lot of why this one is so long. Paragraph A includes some definitions about what is an existing connection, and that means it's any property that has been connected to our sewer system ever. And then a new connection is a parcel that has never been connected. And then it goes through, and again, the intent is if somebody is doing a project in the district, we can point them to this ordinance, and this lays out bullet by bullet the different possible scenarios that we could envision of when and where and what has to happen, basically. And then obviously there's a lot there, so there might be some questions, but that's simply put the intent of it. S2E, beginning on page 5B5, this is where we move that paragraph that I just mentioned that was removed, or moved. Bottom of 5B7, use of sanitary sewers. This is introduction of a new rate that is titled the equivalent inflow removal rate. That rate has not been determined or set yet. That is expected to happen the end of the year during our budget process. And I may defer to Scott on this, but simply put, if a development comes forward and there basically isn't sufficient capacity in our sewer for them to connect, say there's 100,000 gallons that we feel is in excess of our capacity, they have the ability to pay this rate, which is set on if a residential, I'm going to make these numbers up, but if a residential house discharges on average 20,000 gallons on a wet weather day, then if they needed to make capacity of 100,000, they would pay this rate 5 times, times 5. So 20,000 gallons for a single family home. The rate will be set at, and this is paragraph S2L subparagraph C, outlines what the rate stands for and what it means. Basically, if a single family home, to remove the 20,000 gallons, if that costs $10,000, that is what the rate would be. And again, that has not been finalized or set, but this is just describing what that is.
And if I may, John, so this is real life examples, right? So we had the development in West Hartford, 1700 and 1800, and that really started this conversation. And so this is really a rate structure that's designed around non-Hartford. It's for communities that are not a CSO community. It's for a community like West Hartford or Newington or Wethersfield or any of the other 7 towns where a developer or development wants to discharge dry weather flow to the system. And it's a separated system. But it's not really separated because we got a lot of illegal inflow from stormwater coming into our system from a number of different ways, whether it's leaking in or whether people are illegally discharging stormwater from their basements into our system. So what we have said in West Hartford 1700 is, I'm sorry, we don't have the capacity to discharge your dry weather flow because in a wet weather event, all of this excess wet weather that's coming from this town or from the developments or the businesses or the homes in the town, the only way you can connect on a dry weather day is to remove the same equivalent amount of wet weather flow from your system. And so we worked out these arrangements with the city of West Hartford, and the West Hartford said, we don't want to be party to this. We want you to deal with the developer itself. So we said, fine. So in that case, it was 67,000 gallons of dry weather flow that the 1700 development was going to discharge. And on a dry day, it's fine. But on a wet day, there's no room in the pipe because it's full of rainwater from everybody else. So they paid us, and we had a number, $13,000 per home, 13 homes, blah, 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 came up with the with the dollar amount and the amount of wet weather flow. And that's how we did that one. This is no different. We've just modified the numbers to be more reflective of actual, what we think is the real. But this is really something, it's really to encourage non-Hartford towns, the other 7 towns, that the wet weather flow is being discharged to our system and it's illegal, and how do we get it out? And it encourages developers to remove through this mechanism. We'll take this money and we'll utilize this money to actually do improvements in the system. I'll use Great Ponds as an example in Windsor. They basically had they had an issue with capacity, and we did not want to have to increase the capacity of Pequannock Treatment Plant. So they paid us $1.5 million, and we're going to use that money to reduce the I&I in Windsor. And that way, we don't have to increase the capacity of the treatment plant to serve that development. So this is, and we've just come up with a new figure now, which is 27,000.
Yeah, it was, we modified it.
Yeah, it's 27,000, but how many GPM, Chris?
In the case of West Hartford, it was 5,000 gallons per day.
5,000 per home, times 13 is 67,000 gallons per day. So, but we're now executing these types of agreements. Obviously, we bring them to the board, but we want to finalize this so all the developers clearly understand what the program is about. And that's just one of these changes. The other change, unfortunately, this is all trying to work together, right? So we talked a lot in Hartford about existing versus new, and we made a lot of changes to the stormwater ordinances, SVS, what is it? The ones that, the stormwater ordinances that were here tonight?
I mean, S2F is the.
Yes, 2F. So all of that was related to, let's clarify what existing means and what new means, right? And there's a bunch of scenarios with that. But then, as part of these developments, and I'll use Arrowhead and Bushnell South as the example, these projects come out of nowhere. They're really, in a sense, driven by CRDA or politically driven. And they're solely for the benefit of the developer. So we have no mechanism mid-year or really by ordinances to spend our money to help develop another site for a sole purpose of the developer. So the other changes that are identified are things that we've changed our accessible sewer fund. And traditionally, the accessible sewer fund by ordinances, any developer that pays us any fees, the money goes into a pot called accessible sewer fund. And that accessible sewer fund, the sole purpose of that is to basically use that money for debt service or to pay-go layout and assessment projects. And layout assessment means it's not for a developer, it's for a neighborhood, 5 homes, 10 homes, whatever it might be. And we have used that traditionally to fund those kinds of projects. So the developers pay for it. It doesn't cost anybody anything because it's not part of ad valorem. It's just free money. Right now, we've got $18 million in that pot. A lot of these projects sit for years, and I'll use Mountain Road as an example. It's been there forever. It's a $30, $40, $50 million project. It's been sitting around forever, and it just doesn't go anywhere. So we're modifying the accessible sewer fund so that we can now use that money, either pay-go or debt service, to do these projects that pop out of nowhere, like Arrowhead, like Bushnell South. And the good thing about that is the money will come, it's above and beyond our ad valorem 35% fund balance. So it's not ad valorem. It doesn't impact a customer at all. So if we're allowed to use this money can then fund, for example, with Bushnell South, the state's going to give us $3 million. We're going to come up with the other $1.45 million. Now, we just had a conference call with Hartford Hospital today, and they're looking to do a bunch of stuff. So that project might even grow even bigger, and we might even have Hartford Hospital contribute the same way that Bushnell South is. But that allows us to use this fund in conjunction with these existing versus new type developments, and then we can do these projects mid-year. The projects will be approved by the Board of Finance. We have a form called a B100 form, B11 form. B11, B100 was the state. B11 form, and all of those forms will be approved in budget cycle by the Board of Finance and the full board. You'll have all of these projects that are identified in accessible sewer. Commissioner Gale said, if we have $3 million coming in for Bushnell South, I want to make sure you're not using it in West Hartford or any other town, and which is written in here. So we want to make sure that these projects are approved by the board. The money is allocated in the accessible sewer, which you don't presently do right now, and you will approve them. And then when we get ready to start the project, you'll approve that again. So there's much more control and much more transparency to the accessible sewer fund than ever before. But it gives us the ability to utilize and help developments that traditionally aren't funded through Avalon. Sorry, it's a little long-winded.
Can I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you for that. Kind of what I thought it sort of was.
Yeah.
All right. With one of the questions I have in reading this is, let's say you have a bare lot in Hartford, and all there is a combined sewer, and there's no storm. Is that in letter C, new connections, where you're allowed to hook in to the combined sewer? It's not going to stop, someone that wants to build a house on a dead lot in Hartford.
Right.
It's never been hooked up before.
Right.
Can you give me that scenario?
Yeah, so there's two. There's the existing and there's new. And we're very clear on what was existing, what was new. And we had lots of discussions in the past about, very confusing about what is and what isn't existing. So the new ordinance clearly defines if you have an existing lot in Hartford, and forget about whether it's a CSO pipe or a new pipe, doesn't really matter. If it was served by MDC sewer at any point in life, it's existing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Now, we still have, there's lots of caveats there.
Yeah,
There's
that's letter B.
Right, there's like 6 or 7 different scenarios which we have to go through. So, for example, if the existing lot had a house on it and it had a sewer connection to it in 1940, but there's nothing there now, it's existing. Now, we still have to make sure that they're complying with the city and the state ordinances for stormwater. And as long as that's in compliance and there's no net increase in stormwater, we're good. You can connect. We just had this discussion with the Hartford Hospital on their new garage, the replacement garage. What street is that?
Jefferson, 126.
Jefferson. Just had this conversation with the Hartford Hospital and said, you're all set. You can connect, no problem. Now, there's other scenarios though. Let's say the city of Hartford says whatever they're doing there is going to create more stormwater. And then they have to comply with 6.14 or the state ordinances, which says water quality up to a 10-year storm. That changes things, but in most cases, if you're existing, you are going to be okay. Now, then you have the new scenario, and new is, all the scenarios are identical. You still have to go through the same exercise, but the majority of the time, a new connection is going to require the 6.14 from the city, the water quality standards from the state, and then we start to get into, well, maybe there's an opportunity here, a cost-sharing agreement like we did with Bushnell South, where they pay us the cost of the retention system of up to a 100-year storm, and then down to a 10-year storm, and then we share in the cost as long as we can justify to the board that there's a benefit to our other customers in the future or present. But if there's no benefit to our customers in the near future, that's when we're going to come to you and say, we'd like to use the accessible sewer fund for this because it will not impact the existing ratepayers at all. And that is identical to what we did on Bushnell South and Arrowhead and Albany and Woodland.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You talk about demonstration in here. You know, with what I do, there's there's test, there's analysis, there's inspection, and there's
Yep.
demonstration, 4 ways of doing validation or
Yep.
verification. How do you demonstrate that this works? What's the, because it's over here a whole bunch of times.
Right.
So what is the process for doing a demonstration? Bring a water truck up and dump it in the basement and say?
Yeah.
What,
So there's a lot that goes into that, right? So our engineers are going to be doing their cost, their analysis, hydraulic analysis of the flow, and we're required to capture up to the first 1.3 inches of rain on the site. And so it's a lot of tabletop engineering that goes into it. But we also do, like we did with West Hartford, we actually put sewer meters in the sewer system and measure the actual flow, and we use real-time information.
I call that test.
Yeah.
Not demonstration.
Yeah,
From, at least for my industry.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as long as everyone understands what demonstrate means.
Right.
Which is.
Yeah, there's a
in this case,
lot-
test.
there's-
And there's stuff that you do with.
There will be,
With
yes.
all your analysis.
And those
stuff.
guidelines that we referenced, the guidelines really define what those engineering documents need to be to prove to us that you're gonna comply with, for example, 6.14, they have to go through an engineering exercise to prove to us that you are in compliance with the state and city requirements.
All right, well, I think that wraps up my, you have two spaces here on the top of 5B2 between applicable and municipal.
Okay, thank you.
So you save a bite.
Let's keep in mind that we're just referring these items to public hearing tonight.
Yeah,
After the
understood.
public hearing, it'll come back to this committee, opportunity for more questions, and then it'll get referred to the full body, and there's more
No,
opportunity.
there's a whole bunch of more hoops.
I'm
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
But I think that the discussion that came from the clerk and the CEO make this homework assignment a lot
Easier.
easier to comprehend in the
Yeah.
end.
Agreed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Gale.
Thank you. My apologies for missing the beginning of the meeting, and you just mentioned something about these going to public hearing,
Correct.
everything that's just been discussed, and then it's coming back to this committee for further discussion
Correct. Referral to the full body.
before it goes back to the full body.
Correct.
Okay. Can I still ask a couple of questions tonight?
No, yeah, just kidding.
All right, see you later.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, just general comment.
Yep.
Could you guys ever consider an overhaul of these ordinances to give them a different numbering system? Do I have to like submit a formal resolution? This is about the most ridiculous, hard to follow numbering system I have ever seen in any body of any kind of works. This S2, F, L, I mean, come on. Have you talked about it or not?
If I may. So
Yes,
we
ma'am.
just talked about this tonight, and I've mentioned this before. Everything that we're changing is just trying to accomplish what I just mentioned, right? But if you read the ordinances individually, you're like, what? You can't, they're not connected. And so.
Forget about that. That's not my question.
Okay,
I want a new numbering system, but we'll
okay.
talk about that.
Yeah,
All right,
I
two
agree with you.
questions for tonight.
I agree with you.
Your example of the $13,000 for the development that was taking place, I think it was in West Hartford somewhere,
Yes,
where you determined that the system would not be able to accommodate.
correct.
Did we actually do work at that point in time to prepare the system so that they could connect?
Yeah, so that project was a little unique. The first part's the same. The second part was different. So the second part, we said up front to 1700, they were planning to build another development called 1800 across the street. So we said right up front in the 1700, we said, look, our goal is to get 67,000 gallons per day of wet weather flow out of the system. And if you pay us, we'll do it, and because we want to do it, because we're going to do it through removing this water
They
from
did
the
pay
home.
us, correct?
They paid us,
And
correct.
did we get it out of the system?
Well, so hold on. So then we gave a caveat to that and said, listen, if you can remove the same quantity of wet weather flow from the 1800 development, we're happy. We don't care where it comes from. So they paid us for sewer meters. We installed sewer meters on 1800, which is the old Yukon school. And we said, if you can prove to us that as part of your development, you can get that wet weather flow out of the development of 1800, we'll give you the money back, because it's a pain in the butt to go into 13 homes and to remove. So they actually did that. We did the metering, and actually we found that we could remove, and they did, 1 million gallons a day, because all of the storm connections on that property were coming to us. So we actually achieved more than we wanted. And so we basically give them money back. We didn't give back the money for the meter, sewer meters, but we did give the money back for the 13.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
The last question, on S2L, subsection B, which talks about new connections or increases in dry weather flow discharge resulting from development or redevelopment of a property. Does that include redeveloping a vacant lot in the city of Hartford that had a house on it that was connected at one point in time?
Is that in the new
included
section
B?
or the, so I just want to say this, in the new and the existing, they almost have the same scenarios, right? Because all of it can be true. So you could have an existing lot that we define as existing, and if the city of Hartford says you don't have to comply with 6.14, then it's easy answer.
But this is the sewer side, not the stormwater side, right?
Right, but John, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, no, this is, S2L is the use of sanitary sewer.
Okay.
This is the ordinance where we're introducing or codifying the equivalent inflow removal rate. That what is now going to be paragraph B, that was a change we made 2 years ago, kind of, I guess, forecasting this process. And so the paragraph C now more clearly defines what that rate will be. But to your question, it would be a new connection or an increase in dry weather flow for what would be a connection to a separated sanitary sewer. So it would apply to a parcel in Hartford if they're connecting to a separated sanitary sewer.
So again, let's just take the example so I'm clear about it. Vacant lot
Yep,
in Hartford, had a single-family house on it. House got torn down 40 years ago. Now a new single-family house is going up on it. Is that connection going to be affected by B at all?
That would be presumably no increase in the dry weather flow.
Right.
Because it's a
it says new connection.
comparable usage of single
So
family.
if you
to
went
a
from
new
single-family to three-family, you would have an increase, potentially.
Potentially.
Okay.
I think it's excluded for four and above units follows our AC process, which would be a review. 3 and lower get excluded from this, since it's so de minimis quantity.
Just by custom, it's not written in here.
It's written in the other one as part of our AC review process.
Okay.
So typically with a 3 or less unit building, it wouldn't go through the stringent review process because it's such a de minimis quantity.
And
And
to
it's-
your point, the
existing.
guidelines, BPW, they were before BPW, they approved them contingent upon these ordinances being passed, but those guidelines and what Chris is mentioning, that will be approved by BPW and the board. And they'll be available online for people to view and see.
All right, so anybody that's reconnecting, again, vacant property that was connected in the past, now getting reconnected, if they're not increasing the past use, then they're not affected.
Correct.
But if they're increasing the past use to add more units, then they would be affected.
Correct.
Okay. Last question, I know I lied, I think I said that was the last question. What you're showing us tonight for S2F, I know we had considerable discussions about that before it came here tonight. Can I assume that all of the comments and suggestions that were previously made have been incorporated into this?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to refer the proposed ordinances to a public hearing on or about October 7th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Any
You got that one.
individuals here that would like to make some general comments from the public? No one? Right, item number 7 is the commissioner requests for consideration of future agenda items. Commissioner.
Yes, Commissioner Gardo, there was a article in the Current, I think about 10 days ago, about how the Bushnell South thing might not be gaining traction because there's a 40+% vacancy rate everywhere else in Hartford.
Yep.
And I'm just curious on what how that affects what we approved at the district board. I believe it was at the beginning of the month. And maybe this is, could be at our next district board meeting or what have you. It was an interesting article. And it just proves that, you know, it's a dead city.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you're gonna build more stuff in a dead city. It's crazy.
Right.
So, it's a shame.
Yeah.
But I read that and I went,
So if I may.
Yes.
Yes, so as the board approved, Chris Stone and I revised the MOU, and we did modify the MOU, and we did send it off to CRDA. They had a board meeting last, the 18th, I think was Thursday. I haven't talked to Mike Freemuth, but I believe it passed. Now we need to draft an agreement like we had with Arrowhead, and it's really the same document but a little more specifics in it. So whether Bushnell South, and we use the generic term Bushnell South, right? But Bushnell South, there's like 5 or 6 projects in that Bushnell South. The majority of them, 55 Elm is one of them. They've already moved forward. Trinity is already moving forward. 65 Capital is moving forward. It's the larger project that they lost their developer on, which is on 165 Capital, that big parking lot on Capitol Ave. The long and short of it is, we're going to build this sewer system with their $3 million that we get from the state, from CRDA, whether they build it or not. So the good news is we will build it. What we're trying to figure out from the Hartford Hospital is this will be the foundation of future expansion into the Hartford Hospital area. We've already done some serious separation work on Retreat Avenue. So this system would actually pick up Retreat Avenue, which would be a good thing. But we're working with them to see what kind of development they have. But the goal is we're going to move forward to build a system. I'm going to ask for permission from the board this coming year through exactly the process I talked about. The $3 million will come into the MDC and be put into the accessible sewer fund. We will ask permission through a B11 form to start the project this budget cycle, and we will start designing it and build it in, hopefully, in the fall, start at least in the fall of 26. But we want to build a system independent of whether they have a developer or not.
All right, thank you in advance.
Yep.
Any other future agenda items?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Who's that?
Chris Stone.
Oh, Chris, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, just one last point, picking up on what the CEO was saying. The project that was contemplated in this $3 million payment from CRDA to the MDC extends, the project extends far beyond just Bushnell South or 165 Capitol Avenue. And the intent here is to benefit not just that property, whenever it might be developed, but also other developments along the line, so to speak, and as well as some existing properties, not the least of which is the Buckingham Street Garage, which would be connected to that system as well. So I just want to add my 2 cents on the breadth and scope of the project goes beyond just one development.
Thank you. All right, with no other business before us, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.